Chapter 8 of A Different Cowboy Part 2 by Joe Jones. Johnny digs 2 graves side by side behind Tessa's house and lays Sam next to Lupe. He wipes the sweat from his brow as he puts 3 wooden crosses on top of the 2 graves. 1 for Sam, 1 for Lupe, and 1 for their unborn child. He stands up to have a private funeral service for them. He grabs Tessa's old Bible from her house and holds it in his hands as he says these words. Sam was a good man. He was my best friend. Sam, you were there during my darkest hours. You helped Tessa and I and saved our lives from sure death in Arizona. You were closer to me than my own brothers. When my brothers turned on me, you were the only one I could turn to count on. Tears fill his eyes. I'm gonna miss you, my friend. And that deep voice, it always had wisdom to share with me. No matter what I was going through, you always knew how to get me through it. Partner, I'm sorry this had to happen. I pray that the Lord finds you innocent in His sight for the sins that were committed during your time here on earth. I pray the same for Lupe. I hope that God allows y'all to walk through the gates of heaven hand in hand. And I hope He allows y'all to raise that baby together in paradise. I'll see you someday again, and we'll ride on the far side of heaven together across the plains. And make sure you tell Ranger I really miss him too. Sure would be nice if I still had y'all around. Johnny looks up at the sky. And Lord, I also pray that you're with me right now and comfort me, because I need you. In Jesus' name, amen. As soon as his prayer is finished, Johnny is startled by a man's voice right behind him saying, "Well, that was a beautiful service." Johnny turns quickly to face the stranger. "Whoa! Who are you? I didn't even hear you walk up, stranger." The man grins. "I'm an old friend. Just wanted to drop in and pay my respects." "Pay your respects? How did you even know I was having a funeral for them? We were the only ones out here." "I seen what happened. The whole thing. I was watching from up above." "Up above? You mean you was on the hill overlooking the valley?" "Yes, you could say that." "An old friend, huh? I've never seen you before. And if you're an old friend, why didn't you do something to stop him?" "Oh, I wanted to, but I couldn't interfere. That was his decision." The man stares at the graves and then looks at the 3 crosses. "You put 3 crosses for their headstones." "Yeah, it's a Christian thing, you know. It's just when somebody dies. Oh, I know all about it." "But what do you know about it?" "About a cross?" "Yes." Johnny looks down at the cross and says, "Well, I know there was a man who died on the cross, and because of that, I can go to heaven someday. He died for my sin. Do you also know that that man loves you very much?" "Yes, I do. I've been told." The man looks at Johnny and smiles. "Well, I'm glad you know that. See, I was an old friend of Sam and Lupe. Back during the war, I was with Sam every day, right beside him, making sure no one hurt him." "That's funny. I don't remember Sam ever mentioning you." "Yeah, he didn't talk about me much to others, but we were very close. I knew him his whole life." Johnny looks at the man puzzled. "Sam was way older, and you look to be around my age, partner. There's no way you knew him his whole life. You mean his whole adult life?" "No, since birth." "Okay, I see there's been a mix-up here, partner. You're at the wrong funeral. Whatever Sam you're speaking of is probably still alive out there. How old are you?" 33. "Ha, and I'm 30. Sam was in his 50s. See how that's not possible? Now, if you could just leave me alone, I'm trying to mourn the death of my best friend." After saying this, Johnny turns his back to the man. The man then says, "Johnny, Tessa needs you. She has been delivered into the hands of evil men, but I'll be with you." After hearing the man say this, Johnny is stunned that he knows about Tessa and that he even knows Johnny's name, because Johnny hadn't yet told him his name. Johnny turns as quickly as he can to ask the man how he knows this information, but within the second of Johnny hearing this and turning around, the man is gone, nowhere to be found. Johnny is shocked by what he doesn't see as he runs to the front of the house, confirming what he already knew. The man had vanished into thin air. Johnny sits down on the front steps and then realizes who he had just been talking to as he plays the events in his mind. Meanwhile, Tessa has already been taken in the night after being sold by the cowboy who had been living with her. They had thrown her into a wagon after being bound with ropes tying her hands to her feet. The men who had taken her took her to a big town in East Texas where a railroad led straight to Georgia. There were 3 other black women and 2 black men that were in the wagon with her. They cried, not knowing what their fate was. They were thrown onto the train and one of the empty freight cars and chained to the floor. 2 white men would open the door to the car every time the train would make a stop, just to barely feed them and make sure they kept them alive, at least until they made it to Georgia so they could get their money. The train ride was slow and excruciating. The shackles seemed to bite into Tessa's wrists and feet, something she had known all too familiar most of her life. She tried to continuously close her eyes and pray, and try to block out the nightmare that she knew she couldn't wake up from. "What do you think they're going to do to us?" asked a woman. There was a moment of silence until one of the men looked at her and said, "What's your guess?" "They're going to kill us. I knew it," she screams in fear. "They ain't going to kill us. If they was, they would have killed us where they found us," the other man says. "They're taking us somewhere far away. I don't know where, but it ain't good. We've been on this train for days now." Another woman speaks and says, "I know we went through Alabama. I heard the white folks talking about it yesterday when we stopped. I ain't never been this far east. I don't know what's next." Tessa takes a deep breath and says, "Georgia. They're taking us to Georgia." A tear streams down her face. "To be their damn slaves." Slaves? Slavery ended. We're all freemen now, each and every one of us. Don't they know that? "We need to tell them," says one of the men. Tessa looks over at him and says, "They are very aware of that. That's why we're being hidden in this car. And even if other white folks see us and know what they're doing, they ain't gonna do nothing about it. Even if they wanted to, who can they tell? White folks who see other whites trying to help us will treat them like they're one of us. Look what they did to Lincoln." "You don't know that," says one woman to Tessa. "You don't know what the hell I know. But you better listen to me. All of you. I was a slave in Georgia for 30 years of my life, and Georgia ain't no place to be. There's no mercy in their eyes when they're whipping you. No love in their hearts when they strip your children away from you. And no peace for us when we try to escape and hear them dogs come running. I'm pregnant right now with a white man's baby. Some white man forced himself on you? No, we found love. Love? With a white man? Yells one of the men. You're a traitor. You're on their side. Hell, you probably set this whole thing up. They probably got you in here watching us. You're getting some of the money. That's how you know where we're going. No, it's not. I'm just as enslaved as y'all are right now. I only know where we're going because the man I trusted to live with me in my house opened the door to these fools and sold me for $10. And that's the man who got you pregnant? No. That man would have never given me up. Would have never given me to them for all the money in the world. That man loves me like no one ever has. And I love him. And I don't care who has a problem with that, neither does he. If he loves you so much, then where is he? Why did he let you get in this situation, and why was you living with another man? That white man don't care about you. Tessa leans up against the freight door, and the moonlight shines across her face through a small gap. She sighs and says, I don't want to talk about it, as the lonely train whistle blows into the night. Johnny has no idea that she has been taken by train, nor does he know the exact day when she was taken. He hadn't got to ask the cowboy enough information before Sam pulled the trigger on him. So Johnny loaded up his wagon with guns and clothes, not knowing when he would be returning. He took the little bit of food he had. He had never been to Georgia before and did not know what to expect. He didn't know what kind of animals there were, or the kind of terrain he was up against. He only knew prairies and wide open spaces. Tessa had left nearly a week earlier and had already arrived in Georgia by the time he connected Danger to the wagon and headed east. By the time Tessa stepped off the train, she was thrown into another wagon, and the other slaves she was with were separated from her. One of the men tried to fight when he was unchained from the floor. He had knocked down two of the men and began to run down the railroad tracks to get away. But Tessa watched in horror as one of the white men pulled out their gun and carefully aimed and shot him in the back. Tessa closes her eyes as she hears the shot ring her ears. Hell has come back for me, she says to herself. As soon as they make it to the plantation, it's back to picking cotton and working long, hard hours in the fields. Her back hurts daily as her stomach grows with a baby inside. But Mr. Williams, the master of the plantation, shows her no empathy. It makes her work just as hard as the others. One day, she's forced to start working on the west side of the plantation with different slaves. She sees two children that catch her eye over the next several days. A boy and a girl. They look to be around 7 or 8 years old. After working around them for a week, she approaches them and begins to talk to them as they diligently work with their heads down. How long y'all been here? Tessa asks. The little girl stops working and looks up at her. Keep working now, honey. These men get real mad if they see one of us stop, okay? We've been here as long as we can remember, the little boy says. Are y'all brother and sister? Yes. They told us we were. But the two children were biracial. Where's your parents? This time the little girl answers by saying, Our daddy is the master of another plantation. He comes by every now and then to make sure we're working really hard. He said that's how we make him proud. And what about your mama? Master said she didn't want us, so she gave us to someone else a long time ago, and she moved to Texas eventually. Who are you calling master? Your master here at the plantation? No, that's Master Williams. We're talking about Daddy. He makes us call him Master, not Daddy. Tessa nods her head and stops working. I see. What's the name of the plantation he owns? We don't know. What do the other white folks call your daddy when he talks to them? Oh, they call him Mr. Smith. The Smith plantation. You've been there? Yes. Yes, I have. I was born there. Do you know our daddy? Yes, I do. What's y'all's names? The little boy answers by saying, I'm Bill, and this is my sister Julie. Tessa shakes her head and says, No, that's not your names. Your real names are Chancellor and Victor. The children look at Tessa confused. Well, how do you know our real names? Tessa smiles and squats down eye level with them and puts a hand on each of their shoulders. Because I named you. Tears run down her cheeks. Children, I'm your mother. This concludes Chapter 8 of A Different Cowboy Part 2 by Joe Jones. Let me know what you thought of this chapter in the comments below. Also, can you guess who mysteriously showed up to Sam's funeral? Let me know in the comments below who you think that man was. As always, please like, share, and subscribe to this video, this channel, for more content like this as we wait on Chapter 9. Until next time, thank you for watching.